presented or spoken, should I say. So essentially, please don't be discouraged. If you've got any questions in the interim, do punch them into the chat, or essentially, as I say, do raise your hand and we can come to you during the Q&A segments of this talk. I'd just like to hand over to one of the Caribbean Labour Solidarity Exec Committee members, Dennot Nyack, who's basically present at the Colston trial, which was obviously a very, very important verdict. So Dennot, if you'd like to go ahead and please update us.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah, they're coming through.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to another, what I hope will be a fantastic year for CLS. Before I begin, I'd really like to take this opportunity to mark the courage of Jake Skews, Milo Ponsford, Rhiann Graham, and Sage Willoughby, collectively known as the Colston Four. They were targeted by the state to symbolically convict the 3,000 plus citizens of Bristol who came to mark Black Lives Matter on the 7th of June. And fortunately, the state didn't win on this occasion. Last week, a week before, I heard that the Colston trial was on. I was unaware that it was on, and that the summation would be on the 4th, which was, I think, Tuesday of last week. And I said, by hook or by crook, we have to have a presence. CLS has to have a presence there. And so myself, my wife, and a few friends drove down to Bristol and attended the penultimate part of the trial. And we heard the full argument of the prosecutor and most of the arguments of the 4 defense lawyers. And they spelt out, if you like, the opportunities open to the jury. And I'd like to say the following. Now, on the 7th of June, 2020, the citizens of Bristol participating in the worldwide demonstration for Black Lives Matter following the racist murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis policeman descended upon Colston Avenue in the center of the city. Once there, they toppled, as almost everyone will have seen, the hideous statue of Edward Colston that had been present there for more than 100 years. They rolled it towards the quayside, where it was unceremoniously flung into the harbor. The action received worldwide attention and ignited a debate about the memorialization of what I call the fantasy history that Britain has about itself. The removal from everyday sight of this symbol of rape, kidnap, and slaughter continues to cause a reconsideration of how this country, Imperial Europe, and Imperial USA view their, what I would call their criminal enterprises. Now, some of the things I'm going to say perhaps, or some of the things I've just said, may be seen as perhaps a bit too harsh. I don't think so. I think that is a very fair comment on how we have arrived at this point in time. Following the toppling of the statue, 4 of the demonstrators were put on trial. The Colston Four, I've given you their names. They were charged with criminal damage under the 1971 Criminal Damages Act. Following a lengthy trial, they were on the 5th of January acquitted of all charges. Now, a lot of people, if you switch on any of the sort of talk radio stations, a lot of people who illustrate their ignorance are saying things which I think is going to become the narrative, which is, blimey, we saw that they toppled the statue. We saw that the statue was damaged. We saw that the pavement was damaged. We saw them roll the statue, which damaged it further. They're guilty because they damaged the statue. It's criminal damage. Now, no, it isn't, because under the Act, if you're charged with destroying or harming property, you can argue that you have a lawful excuse. So, for example, you see a fire and you decide to break down a door in order to rescue people. It's a lawful excuse. It is not criminal damage. There is no criminal intent. And this is because the safeguarding of property, whether it's a house, a statue of a mass kidnapper, or anything else, is less important than protecting public safety or preventing more serious crime. So to demonstrate lawful excuse. Defendants must show that they acted reasonably and honestly believe that what they were doing were for these reasons. Now, in other words, the Colston statute was damaged. The Colston 4 said, yeah, we damaged it. But the jury decided that the damage was not criminal. Therefore, it was not criminal damage. And that was the charge that they were facing. So you will face this sort of people sort of pushing this thing out at you where you challenge them. And this is white and black people will be saying this. I'm not going to spend any more time on the legal side of the issue, as it is hoped that CLS may, at some time, be able to get one of the Colston 4 or their supporters to address one of our monthly meetings. What I want us to consider for the future is, what does the action of these courageous 4 mean? There are myriad things that progressives can do to advance the victory of the Colston 4. However, I argue that in doing so, we must be robust in our approach rather than defensive. The capitalist classes, who have benefited greatly from the distortion of British history and have thereby bamboozled British people, will, once they can draw breath, will come back and will seek to recover from the verdict, as they're already doing. The true history of the British Empire will be buried if they can get away with it. So being defensive, I believe, will encourage attack. As I stated above, I believe that this is one of the brightest lights to date that has been lit on the opportunity for uncovering Britain's history, thereby illuminating a small part of that history, which has been deliberately kept in darkness from its citizens, is a great thing to do. And the following are some of the issues, and I haven't got a monopoly on understanding all of the issues that the trial has opened. But I think some of the issues are as follows. The first one is protection and extension of parts of the judicial system that will allow for those without the means to access justice. A lot of people are now saying, oh, the jury got it wrong, so maybe we should change the law so that the juries have to either explain how they came to their decision or have no jury trial. Defeat any legislation that seeks to prevent expressions of public of the public, and I think obviously we're going to be discussing that later. Advance the curriculum to ensure that the true history of Britain is taught in all educational establishments and within all subjects, not just as something here, hey, we're going to talk about British history and we're going to say this is the role played by people of Indian descent and this is the role played by people of African descent and this is what we did. But in every subject, there is an opportunity to look at British history and say, how did we arrive at this particular point in, say, biology, chemistry, and so on. Continue the dismantling of racism and otherings. So these additional otherings are specifically designed, and this is a view I only came to only a few years ago, thanks to Luke setting me straight on a couple of things. I used to think that racism is sort of, it's there, it's in the air, it's like COVID, it's floating around and occasionally you'll catch it and become a very nasty person. I now understand that racism had to run alongside the kidnapping of Africans, their trafficking across the Atlantic, and their placing in work camps until they were worked to death. Because you could not, as a human being, consider that you were doing this thing to someone who could be your cousin, your nephew, your niece. It has to be the other. And the othering is racism. And as it was constructed, we have a duty to participate in its demolishing, okay? We must publicize and support the campaign for the reparations for kidnapping and theft, and we must engage collaboratively with all sectors of this country and abroad and understand and share our understanding of history. So those are some of the things that I think the Colston verdict has opened up for us. The verdict is going to come under a huge amount of attack, but I think we can defeat it because the verdict is saying, let us go after truth. And people arguing that you shouldn't go after truth sounds a bit funny. So a couple of commentators, including Boris Johnson, says, these people are disturbing our history. What are they doing? Leave our history alone. Oh, that is a really strange approach to history. History keeps changing. That's the problem with history. So thank you very much. If anyone wants to ask some very, very short questions, because I don't want to detract from our main speakers, what I will say is that the Colston Four are four white young people who are very determined in their views. I've spoken to them, not at length, but I've spoken to some at length. They are really great people, and they will come under a sustained attack from this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that report. We thank you very much for attending on behalf of CLS to what was definitely a litmus test of recent times and an extremely important verdict. As you know, there are quite a few statute defenders who are present today who are not so happy with the verdict, but to be honest with you, the rule of law fell on the right side with the Colston Four, so I'm very happy to see that. We do have a question from Dr. Liz Okokan, I believe, probably for yourself, Dennot. Dr. Liz, if you'd like to fire away.
Just a point of information, greetings and Happy New Year, solidarity to everybody here in Caribbean Solidarity, Labour Solidarity. I've invited people from Pursuit of Happiness, which is a Huddersfield-based African Caribbean community online support group, and they've been fighting to get rid of the name of a road in Huddersfield called Kafa Road, which is a South African word for the N words. And again, like the Colston statue, local people have campaigned to get rid of that road name before, but that road is in a gated, very posh part of Huddersfield. So they are going to pursue this campaign, and it shouldn't have taken George Floyd and such a public lynching for Colston to go down. As I've said, 40 years ago, I went to Bristol. Black Boy Road and all the other offensive roads were there. Brixton had a pub called something like that, Black Boy Road. So that was in the middle of the uprisings in the 70s. So thank you so much, Dennot. Thank you for all the leadership from the Caribbean Labour Solidarity, from all of you, Luke and Omar and Jackie especially. It's very good to see Jackie on Trevor Phillips' TV show, but we can talk about Trevor Phillips another time because there are other issues there. But blessings to everybody, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Dan, if you'd like to offer any further comment at all, please feel free to go ahead.
No comment, just to reinforce that this verdict is so important. The powers that be will try to stifle it. They will try to outmaneuver it. We must be on our guard, and we must be robust. We must not be defensive. We are saying that we want accuracy in history.